want me to use it? Whiteboard here.
Okay, I'll be the one.
And the closing plenary
writing
is
down
till
the
half
three recommendations or two.
5. Okay. But then the bus goes at half 6.
You're just waiting for the participants to come.
Oh, yeah,
yeah. Go anywhere and see something from the city.
First one is KAICIID as a network for partnership in terms of access to education and violence to refugees
And I see that they have much work to do today too. I hate it.
KAICIID should fund
I came 2 days early so that I could see some
I worked all the weekend so that I say okay, so that I can but
migrant integration and the network working on the migrants and
okay, everybody's here. Yes.
third recommendation would be to use two-fold assessment national level, public authorities.
Hello everybody. Do we have virtual participants with us? I think so. Okay, I got a confirmation.
Recording in progress.
Welcome back, Andrew. Hi. Everybody, I hope that you are relaxed and ready to rumble after our last break. So this session is our final session, and our goal here is to come up with 3 main recommendations that all of us agree on, to present that in the plenary in the big room later today. So first of all, I need a volunteer who will present our group's findings or 3 recommendations today. We have nominations even. Okay, Mary, you are volunteering. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Big round of applause for Mary. So basically, whole session today is to prepare Mary to present us well and to have really strong 3 recommendations.
We're sure she'll be fine.
Okay, great. To do that, we first need to hear what you come up with. So the plan is to have each of your group, including virtual or hybrid group, to present your findings, but in a way not to repeat yourselves. So basically, just first group will go into details what their conclusions are, and the rest are just adding on the content if needed. If not, they will just say, okay, great, you already mentioned whatever we mentioned, we don't have anything original to add, and that's it. Afterward, we will continue to work in detail on those 3 recommendations. So first group, go ahead.
Very important to write it very clearly so that we can read it and see it, please. Okay? Thank you.
I will ask the tech guy to zoom on camera on the whiteboard and the guys presenting. Thank you. And please, use your mic. You have one here as well.
Thank you, Tanya. Our group is having an A and a B part. The A is describing, in a nutshell, how we came up with what we or somehow integrated answers to the 5 questions. And then I'll pass the mic to Renato, who will then specifically talk about 3 recommendations. In a nutshell, we looked at everything, the 7 recommendation areas that were on the report, and then we said, in order to be able to do that and achieve that in the long term, what we actually probably need is some sort of a framework, of a mapping of the monitoring and assessment of each country in Europe, because the situations are incredibly different from one country to the other. And one of the challenge as a European network is sometimes we generalize about things throughout Europe when there's not enough precision in terms of what the local national needs are. So in order to try to better move towards more national focused, tailored to the needs that are very different, you know, the first column here is about basically recognizing that, you know, by alphabetical order, doing, you know, what you have on a map when you do a basic research, and you see that for each country listed in Europe, you have different columns on what the situation is at the moment on a variety of topics. Of course, the list could be endless, but just to start, first we need to recognize, are countries mostly arrival countries, transit countries, or final destination countries? Having said that, we also know that sometimes, for some people, those two or three of those are within the same country. So it can be a little challenging, but distinguishing at least those three things is important because the needs and the needs coming out of those situations will be very different. The second piece has to do with assessing what is already provided in each country by the nation state or its regional or even municipal policymakers, as well as what the religious communities within these nation states are, you know, doing, assessing that, both of those. The third piece is, you know, how through our networks, creating spaces of dialogue in order to meet with the migrants and refugees in terms of, you know, these three different levels of arrival, transit, and a final destination, in order to be able to better understand the needs and aspirations. Because if somebody is in an arrival mode, but their aspiration is to move to a different country, then how much effort and time do you put into their trying to integrate the formal education of that country when they want to leave that country? How much investment do you do in language training, let's say in Italy, if you arrive in Italy, if you want to go to Sweden, right? So we need to better understand this. So dialogue is a useful means to assess that. We all know that. And then part of the needs and aspiration is what is short-term versus what is long-term. There are often, you know, in a traumatic sort of arrival mode, often it's humanitarian needs, very basic humanitarian needs, which are radically different, or not radically, but they're very different than medium and long-term educational needs, right? So while we know that the final focus is on integrated formal education networks, educational systems, that's the end aim. Well, there are different steps along the way, and different people must realize those differences and figure out how best to respond. And finally, last point, is that there is maybe in the arrival, and especially in the transit sort of situation, the emphasis may be more on informal education with the support of parents and volunteers who know the language of the people arriving, and then more formal education and inclusion in the long-term process. So, but long-term, you know, doesn't mean that we don't want to emphasize how quickly that needs to happen for those who have decided to make that country their final destination. That's the difference here.
Thank you. Perfect timing. Thank you, Patrice. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. So we tried to write down 3 recommendations. We thought of KAICIID as a network, as the main actor, also recipient of these recommendations. So the first recommendation is KAICIID as a network should monitor the evolution of the situation in terms of access to education of migrants and refugees in European countries, monitoring the situation at the national level because of the several differences that Patrice has already explained. The second recommendation would be KAICIID should partner, so before it should be mapping the situation, and should partner with other research institutions, networks, platforms who are already working on this. And we identified 2 concrete examples, at the European level, not only European Union, but European level, so the broader understanding of Europe. So one concrete example is the Serious Policy Network on Migrant Education, who is partnering with universities, education providers, and also Don Bosco International is a dissemination partner of this network, and the MIPEX is the Migrant Integration Policy Index, which is measuring the situation in 52 countries in Europe and beyond in 8 policy areas, and education is one of these 8 policy areas. So second recommendation, partnering and mapping and partnering with. And the third, last recommendation is just to specify, to clarify that we wish that KAICIID may be promoting a twofold assessment or monitoring in order to monitor first what are public authorities doing at the national level in European countries, but also, because we are also interfaith, interreligious network, also what religious actors are doing at the national level in European countries in terms of access to education of migrants and refugees. So these are our 3 recommendations. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. I have a question, please.
Please use mic so virtual
Thank
can.
you. You speak all the time about KAICIID as a role player, but the question were more general than KAICIID. So you specified with KAICIID, but we took it as a general. Can you clear that, please?
Yeah, sure. I will leave the microphone soon also to my friends in the group, but this is a choice we made at the beginning of our reflection. No? When it comes to recommendation, let's identify KAICIID as a network, as a recipient of our recommendations. Why? Maybe Patrice can complement.
Yeah, I mean, the idea, it was simply that looking at these questions, we could answer them either from our own specific organization's perspective, or from our own national perspectives, or from whatever, different perspectives. So we chose to simply think, okay, we are a network here, supported by KAICIID, but it's not just KAICIID. So when you were saying KAICIID, we really made the KAICIID, policy network, migrant, this network that we constitute together. So that's where the focus is for the recommendations.
Thank you.
Before we move on to the next group, thank you, Mabruka. Do you have any recommendations for this group here, for the policymakers? Do you want to add anything as a group, or maybe later in the plenary? Just think about concrete recommendations based on the papers that we all have in front of us. Thank you. Yeah. Mabruka, can your group present? And use mic, please.
You can tell me if I miss anything.
Yeah.
Thank you. So our group have actually got 6 recommendations rather than 3. And I'm going to ask the other group members to add if I omit anything. So our recommendation 1 is that all refugee children across the European Union should have the legal entitlement to access education, because in some European countries they don't have this. So we thought that was an important starting point that we should be involved in. And secondly, that all schools in the European Union under the UN Rights of the Child, I'm not a lawyer, but someone will tell me the right legislation, should allow children to study without the need for documentation, because that's restricting children currently across the EU being able to access any education. Thirdly, that all schools should ensure safeguarding, healing, and the well-being of children and their parents, to address any needs, including the impact of trauma, because that will impact on their ability and their parents' ability to support the children with their education. So we felt that should be addressed. Fourthly, we liked Mary's idea of supporting communities in the buddying system. I think she called it something else. We used this buddying word to empower children and link them with other refugees in their community to help support and troubleshoot problems, mentor them, make them feel accepted. I think it's just stopped. Fifth, I maybe switched it off by mistake. Fifth, training and sensitization of teachers to be very sensitive to the needs of refugee children. And then sixth recommendation is interfaith dialogue and interreligious dialogue is very important in all of the above. To have good knowledge of each other's cultures and very good communication. And this should ensure greater cultural sensitivity in schools, so a humane approach is used and different cultural practices are recognized and supported and don't become contended. Is there anything I've missed?
To make also the immigrants aware of their responsibilities, because first we have to make the difference between refugees coming now at the host country and refugees paying for 2 years or 1 year here. It's a very important difference, because they have to also to be responsible, to be active in the society. Because what we see is they are a little bit comfortable. They have the profit from the allowances, the profit from everything, but when it comes to the integration as a part, as participating in the society, they are very reluctant. Not because of the language or, because yes, okay, we are here, but please, we are okay here. But we have to make them aware of their responsibility to be active in the process, because social cohesion can't be reached from one way. It's two ways participation, and so it's very important that also we make them, empower them, but at the same stage we say, now you are in the place to also to act, to be active.
I could also add, because actually our main question was like the role of the religious leaders or faith-based groups, and there's one challenge I think in European context, that the religious groups are not they're not equal among each other. And I think the most, especially if we talk about the Muslim community, we have a lot of imams who don't have theological training. They don't understand how the system works in the national level. So I think in order to empower the religious groups, there should be on the national level programs to educate the religious leaders from the minority groups. So this is one very important thing, and I think KAICIID has been also working for that. But without, like when we are talking about religious leaders who might have only like vocational training, for example, and then we're talking about, like in Finland, we have two official churches. It's Evangelical Lutheran Church and Orthodox Church. All priests, they have at least master degrees. So how we can have interfaith dialogue in the same level if the other one is worrying that there's enough bread in the table and the other one is thinking about abstract theological issues. So when we are talking about the field of education, all the religious leaders should have some kind of understanding about the local educational system in order to help their members.
Thank you. Can we have a third group to add on if you have anything to?
Yeah, I can try to say a few words. We already said a lot of what we talked about, but sure, we talked about the religious communities and so on. Yeah, but I can't write and talk at the same time, so I will do that afterwards if it is. Yeah. So the importance of religious leaders and the communities in being sort of hosts for newcomers. They might be the first to stop for any migrant, might be their religious leader because that's safety for them. But we need education for them as well in order for them to be the best host possible, to help them navigate society and all the rules and things that happens, where to send the kids and so on. They will not seek the social security service and so on. They will go to their imam or their priest or whatever at first, because there's a language, there's something in common there. So more education for them as well in order to provide safety for that. And then we talked about, there's so much, we talk about Europe, everybody's talking about the EU, we have Europe in common, we have to lift this, it's a crisis, there's so many people coming. But we're all talking about our own perspective, we're all talking about how this is my country and we are doing this. Well, it's not really uplifting the big numbers in total. There's too many different roles, too many diverse ways of seeing things, and nobody's really helping anybody. Everybody's just busy saying, we can include someone and then as quickly as possible send everybody home again. So we were talking about something very controversial about creating an individual, maybe EU-based organ. I'm getting into trouble here. That regardless of current government speeds up the process of citizenship decision-making to create a sense of belonging very quickly, fostering the desire to engage in host communities, language, election systems, and so on, as all the recommendations. If you do not feel that you belong in it, it could be difficult to even engage in it, have a desire for it. If you're there for 2 years, and you know, you have asylum for 2 years, what's the need to learn a new language? Why should I invest in learning a language, learning the culture and so on, if I have to leave in 2 years anyway? So, yeah, there needs to be more consensus about doing these things, and a better based organ that says, this is the regulations, this is how we want things to be in Europe. Make it happen, make it an inclusive. I know host countries, I know Denmark and other places around Europe will be screaming, hey, you are putting this on us. No. But it will be easier for each country to decide and to navigate in if they say, this is the rules, this is how we work, this is what's needed, this is the school you have to provide for the kids and so on. Yeah. So, and it should not be bound on just EU, it should be bound on, as you speak, the United Nations regulations, rules for children and all of that. It should be based on humanitarian rights and so on. Equal access to everything. Yeah.
Thank you. Group 3 had a good presentation, even though they said that they will not have anything to add. Thank you.
We were too talkative, so
yeah.
Again.
And we will have fourth presentation of our truly hybrid group with 2 virtual and 2 physical participants. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Just to say that how creative we can get with the same task, we achieve so different results. one initial note, and coming from this diversity of results coming from the same proposal. So in this group, we stick to the input paper, trying to understand how we could refine, rephrase, or had missing recommendations in the input paper, not creating necessarily new recommendations. And why? Because and our initial question was, is this to produce policy recommendations or a call to action for practitioners and policymakers? Is this an advocacy tool that we are aiming to get? Just to focus on the discussion. So I think this is an important point to organize ourselves in the aim, in the result, in the output that we are willing to get from this discussion, this group discussion. So this was our starting point. Is this a policy or advocacy tool that we are aiming to get? Are this a call to action for practitioners and policymakers? In that sense, we only worked on the existing recommendations, on the detail of the proposal, the call to action in each recommendation, and we discussed how this could be feasible, or where we can have something that was missing due to the diversity of countries, because I think this should be broader recommendations that could be splitted in national, local, regional actions. Okay.
Great.
So,
and to whom?
and
Exactly.
to whom?
Yeah.
So it's very important to know, and this is a very hard exercise. I experienced that before. So it's very important that we really focus on our audiences. Who are the audiences? And that will help us to decide what to put and what not to put in that paper. So that's it.
Yeah, so thank you, Alexandra. So we are a really specific group, so 3 of us will actually talk in front of the group. We commented on recommendations that were in input paper, and we tried to tackle some, we comment actually on them, like they were generic recommendations, like there was one problem about one word that is used in input paper, and that's obligation, obligating schools, because we think that schools shouldn't be obligated. There should be, the solutions should be, and recommendations should be done on high level, so on the top, and then schools should just actually implement these regulations that are made on the top. What we made 2 new recommendations. First one is to include intercultural education as a professional development for school staff, to provide them to learn about interreligious dialogue, what is an interreligious dialogue and how to use it in their classrooms. And connected to that recommendation is that these teachers will actually provide intercultural education and use intercultural dialogue in their classes. And the second recommendation is actually to initiate and implement the care and education for children under the 6 years. We think that this is the area that is not covered by the policies so far, and we think it's really important because of we have a lot of families with kids that are under 6, and actually no one is educating them on these specific contexts of a new country, of a new neighborhood, different cultures, etc. I will now ask Andrew to comment.
I'll summarise if I can. That's great. I mean, thank you to everybody. It's great, isn't it, when we're having these discussions and it's sort of just having different people's sort of perspectives and summarising them together. I think I'd sort of just summarise by saying in broad terms, we agreed language is crucial, and we had quite a detailed discussion around the different sort of supports for different people at different stages of learning languages, and support for those learning the language, the main language in that country, and continuing to learn their own language. We talked about adapting the recommendations around teacher training as we've just described, seeing that as part of what all teachers should be learning to do, not just a specialist teacher in each school, although there might be a role for a specialist as well in terms of supporting some of the particular integration activities that are going on there. And we talked about sort of separating out the responsibilities for, you know, the government's being responsible for the statutory provision and the funding, and the schools being responsible for things like practical delivery, and not mixing the two, so that schools aren't being required to do things that they haven't got the resources to do, and are being indeed put in a structural situation where they're not in control of the numbers they're having to deal with, all those types of things. So making sure that those different level responsibilities are properly attributed. And then finally, we were talking really about adding in, as we've discussed, you know, the importance of schools as places of integration, the need for everyday welcome within those spaces, and then thinking about the role of religious groups to be able to run both integration activities to support that agenda, and also to maybe run some of these supplementary support activities, like with early years that we were talking about in the previous contributions. But that role also for faith groups might extend to doing some of the sort of the advocacy work where there's been issues of discrimination, or where particular school policies maybe haven't adapted inclusive practices, whether that's around meals or uniform policies or whatever the issue happens to be, maybe to use intercultural dialogue as a means of helping to refine those policies and make them more inclusive.
Thank you, Andrew. Are you, okay. Thank you so much. This was really fun in terms of really hybrid group. Okay, so I think that we are ready, and I will pass baton of moderator to the Mabruka in order for me to have my opinions. So I would like to add, or even ask, maybe I missed it. I wrote down one of the recommendations that I would like to add as a participant, but I'm not sure, maybe you already did it, so you will correct me. I wrote fast-track integration of teachers with refugee background into national education systems. Like, of course, prerequisite for that would be nostrification of foreign diplomas or degrees. Does that make sense to you, or maybe it's even already there? What the group thinks? Go ahead.
It's not there. I think it's critical and it's very important, but it's very hard to get it.
Yeah, but some countries already manage.
Yeah.
I think Sweden, or maybe I'm wrong, is a good example of doing that.
I think it's a strong, important, relevant recommendation.
Thank you. I agree, especially for the two reasons. To kids who are in the school, to have somebody with eye on them who will notice the behavior and maybe issues that they can address, and of course use as a bridge or connector with the staff and kids, and expose them in different way to the authority in that with refugee background. So thank you. Mabruka, go ahead, and Mary will write the 3 top recommendations or whatever she wants, because this is half an hour preparations for her, with moderation of Mabruka. Thank you.
Yeah. I just want that we all go through these things, and from all these recommendations, we try to manage only 3. So we have to squeeze things together, and maybe we come with a good 3 recommendations of all of these. Maybe the 3 points of KAICIID, we can make it 1. So that we have KAICIID as someone. So we try together, please.
Yes, it's just one of the recommendations that you came at your table.
We will now try all of these to make 3 for you, prepared.
Yes, I can
Yes, of course.
I just wanted to talk about one.
Yes, please.
The one that I thought was important. It is one that you had in regards to mental health. I think that is one of the things that we usually don't think about when we think about refugee kids going through education, because if you do not prepare the teachers for that these kids have traumas, they've been in a war, and at the same time they cannot go back to their parents and get help, how are they, even though if they get into schools, how are they going to be good students if we do not understand who these kids are?
Yeah, we know as long as they are not cognitive healthy, they are blocked to receive any education. So,
yeah, so I think even before we think about refugee kids coming into schools, that they have to be screened to see if there's any mental health issues with them.
May I add something?
Yeah.
You have to be very careful how you actually define that, because I believe that a lot of kids with a trauma, I'm a principal in school where we have refugee backgrounded children, it's important to get the rhythm. So I think it's more important to enter to the school at the simultaneous time to give also the help with the healing. But if you just block them out because you need to monitor them, we might even be guilty of ethical profiling and stuff like that. So we know that we have structural discrimination in European countries a lot. I would say that first, the kids, they enter to the school, but they should be at the same time allowed to certain facilities, which is like helping with their trauma issues.
Yes. It's an integrated.
integrative, yes, I think so.
So do we agree on one of that to be a recommendation, or how do we do it?
Just a second while they're thinking. Andrew, do you hear us without the mics? Did you hear just what was just...
Yes, I can hear. I can hear. And I mean, I think for me, there is nothing magic about having 3 recommendations here. There are about 7 in the current sort of policy paper. So some of these points could be dealt with by adapting existing recommendations. Others might need new ones being added. I would agree entirely that some of the basic health needs and mental health needs of pupils universally actually in schools, but particularly for refugee and migrant children, are absolutely vital to be dealt with just as a starting point, you know, whether that's breakfast club, counselling support, all those types of things, ideally provided universally by the schools, but actually in the absence of that, faith groups could provide some support and some of those additional sort of forms of support. I think that fits that sort of supplementary category we were talking about in our group.
Yeah, it's just an idea. We have this recommendation: all refugee children have access into formal education, and this is a legal right with some special facilities for those who are suffering from trauma or whatever. So that we have a point which is a legal right of the children to have education, but the people who are in need of some special facilities, they have to take it. Is it okay for you? Are you okay with this idea? Thank you. Okay, we have the first.
When we say, because doesn't it depend on which country we are talking about in regards to, like, if we have it like a requirement that all refugee children have access into formal education?
This is what the UN
just in general
Charter said about the rights of children, but the reality is another thing. We know that in Greece is not the case, in many other countries, but
do we have any examples of countries where this is not the case?
Yeah, it is.
Greece?
Greece is one.
Yeah.
Greece is one, for example.
UK, it doesn't either? Okay.
Please.
For sure, all the recommendations are adding or
all the countries are committed with that. So it doesn't happen. Yes, I know.
No, it's just.
But that's why we are willing to highlight what is not yet achieved by all the countries.
Yes.
But based on the rights that are
The charter is something, the reality is another. But we want to emphasize that this right is for every child everywhere.
Yes, I think it's easier if when I talk about it that I can give examples than if I just come with a statement and say, maybe I can give examples of the countries that don't have it. That's why I was asking for the countries.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
that's
understand.
why I'm saying it's call for action is not to bring a new right, because the rights are already.
No, it's not a new thing. It's something which we are confessed to do in we have the United Nations Charter, and this is what we want to emphasize at the beginning. Yes. And so we put these special facilities for those in need of that.
Yes.
Just to clearly clarify again, Mary, you will have only 40 seconds for each recommendations, which means your total speech with introduction and conclusion would be 3 minutes. So don't worry.
So I come back to your table, Patrice, so that you try to formulate all the 3 things in one. To squeeze the things.
One clarification I wanted to make is maybe rather than KAICIID, especially to Mary, maybe we would like to phrase it like the main actor is the European Policy Dialogue Forum, so that we understand it not just as KAICIID as organization, but our network of organizations who are attending the forum. So our suggestion would be to phrase the recommendation so that we recommend that the European Policy Dialogue Forum and the network of organizations who is attending it should monitor, and then you can merge the 3 recommendations into one.
We will merge, and we will provide sort of that merging phrasing to Mary.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Mary, you get it from them, the point. You make the point. Thank you. Thank you, Patrice, for that. Please.
I'm suggesting for the previous one, we could combine something else. So we could say all refugees, children have access to formal education, which is a legal right, without the need for documentation, including access to health and social care.
Yes, it's a good
So then
thing,
we combine 3 in 1.
Yes, because many countries make an obstacle for documentary things and they don't have it. Thank you very much. Yes, it's a good one. Okay, we have 2 things now. We have to come up with the last one. Maybe when we have all of these, training sensitive teacher. Yes, this role of intercultural competencies, which we have to enforce in schools because we need them so that they can cooperate with all the challenges of the diversity of the class. Maybe in this direction we have to recommend.
I also think that this, including intercultural education as a professional development for school staff, is also similar to this training plus sensitization of teachers to be sensitive to needs for refugee children. I guess they are the same.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is about having the integrative sort of activities for which teachers need the competencies, and that needs to be then built into their sort of professional development frameworks, really.
Yes, the school.
The old school.
Yes.
And maybe we can have care and education in a way that we can consider the mental health, but also the younger children in the system, because we propose to add the under 6 in these recommendations, because both in camps but also in the countries, many refugees and migrant children under 6. So if we could add at some point that early years are important and that might be achieved putting care and education, because that's an international understanding of who we are including.
Yeah, and I would like to put also the word from Arthur, who said we have to develop this welcome culture, because we have the situation of racism, of many things, and we have to make it, we have to give an alternative of welcome culture in the sense that intercultural teachers helping these welcome culture being everyday life, so in schools.
I have one question, because you were talking about the early childhood education,
Yes.
so I including that one too.
Yes.
So when we are now talking about formal education, I think the early childhood education is more complicated, because different European countries, they have different systems. Like in the city of Helsinki, in Finland, you can start with 5 years old. In UK, the school system starts when you're 4. So yes. So I understand what you mean, but I think that's maybe something to think about later, if we now give the 3 recommendations. Because certain times, in certain countries also, some of these social security benefits are entitled if you take care of the children at home, or you put in the early childhood education. So it's even more complicated, because it's involved with the income of the family. Yeah.
I tend to disagree. This is one of the child's rights, the basic child's rights.
Yeah.
So I would say that the system, in the way the system is organized, what I'm bringing is we are addressing all compulsory education. For instance, in Spain, compulsory education starts at 4 months. So that's the case for them. It's not the case for Portugal. Compulsory education starts only at 6. So
let me
it's,
to be,
it's
yes,
something
yes.
that if we are children's rights based on our recommendations, we could not take that away.
Let me think, like, I'm not like disagreeing with you. I think early, I'm working under the Department of Education in City of Helsinki, and it includes everything from the early childhood education till when you are old and you still want to study something for fun. So but the issue is like how we determine the early childhood education as a term. I think that's a bit problematic, and in different countries they have different systems. So when we are talking about the formal education, in certain countries it already includes early childhood education, and in certain countries it doesn't. So I just wanted to maybe to think about that.
Yeah.
We have names for that. We have EPDF, early childhood development, who is including social security, is including health responsibilities in the system, or we can do for ECEC, early childhood education and care. This is common. This is something that is understood by all the countries. So I don't think that the name and the system in each country should put us away of that concern. But it's something that I'm bringing to the discussion. I'm not imposing at all. So sorry if I seem like that.
Okay. We come back to this intercultural program, or we have education for us, a help system in the education, so that we promote more understanding for these newcomers, and to promote these welcome cultures, and to overcome these challenges, because these challenges are coming because we don't know how it functions in that system and how it functions in that system. And we need these bridge builders as intercultural educators, so that we can promote this inclusion at school. Please.
Yeah, I was just thinking, because we're talking about a lot about schools and stuff, and many countries you have to recognize that daycares and so on are also under regulations about how they should foster these kids. It's non-formal. It's not education like that, but it's psychological. It's all about empathy and culture and so on. So if we miss out daycares and that very early stage non-formal education of the child, it will be tough. Because then we need those pedagogues and so on to be able to handle these multicultural differences that comes in. Prepare them for the next step in school where there's another kind of learning.
This holistic approach to education. Okay. Okay.
I'm again talking about the structural discrimination. Also the minorities, they have rights to ensure that their children learn the mother tongue and etc. In different countries, the early childhood education is involved also that you can learn your mother tongue and I think it's if I look in European level in general, especially in Nordics, I think the early childhood education is not that much about supporting the child's identity as a minority. It's more about the assimilation. So there's political problems in this term, and I wouldn't talk about daycare. I would talk about the right term, which is like early childhood education. It's education. So so this is something maybe we can discuss later on, but now if we're talking about these recommendations, we have to be very careful in which way I'm sorry, English is not my first language, so how we make the recommendations that we don't actually support structural discrimination, because people get conclusions very easily. When we're talking about that the children should go to the daycare and so on, we have also minorities who want to keep the language, who want to keep the culture, and it's not forbidden. So that's why I'm sorry to take these, because I see it from this school or my everyday work, that sometimes when we talk about these issues, the policymakers might misunderstand us.
Yeah, but I completely agree. I mean, from a Danish perspective, we're at age 4, they start preschooling the daycare children to be able to go into public school by age of 5. So it needs to start early and have the respect for your native language or whatever you choose. Yeah, of course.
Okay. We have 2 recommendations now. We have 2. Yeah. We need 1. We need 1.
Is the third one this
Yes, but we have to formulate it, how to make it.
What about if it's included in the teacher training, this kind of intercultural education? I think the universities which are responsible of the teacher education should have that like obligatory part of the degree.
Yeah, including intercultural education in the teachers' trainings. Okay.
So we have intercultural and into what, sorry?
Pre-service and in-service training.
What is that?
It's before they enter the profession and when they are in the profession.
So it's
Yeah,
and in service, but you have to explain, because otherwise they don't, because you are from the domain. I know what you mean, but if someone not from
the in-service
education domain is the pre-service before coming as a teacher, when you are a student for being a teacher, and in-service when you are within.
So it means that the administration, like for example, the Department of Education in City of Helsinki, they're entitled to provide also the training for teachers who are already hired. Like this year, we have a theme of anti-racism training, so the teachers, they got that. So it should be obligatory in both ways.
Yeah. For me, it's very important compulsory because in OSCE we have these intercultural thing as a principle, but the teacher can choose it or can leave it. So it is very important to say compulsory because so that they stick to it. Yeah. Otherwise, they can't choose any other thing.
I was just thinking in regards to the intercultural, including the intercultural education for teachers. As you mentioned, it's not only in regards to, it's also in regards to racism, like understanding the kids that you are educating.
I don't know, I will not use the racism thing, but I will strengthen the diversity of the children so that we mean what is we mean. Because when we see racism, and so it's a big word, but when we put it as a positive, the to take in consideration the diversity of the classroom of the children. Yes. So we have to be a little bit diplomatic in.
Could also add the earlier point in this point about employing refugees themselves as teachers.
Yeah.
To include it in this point.
Yeah. We can manage to put these refugees teachers can be the bridge builder in this education system.
Andrew, go ahead.
I mean, I think all of that is fine, but I would just sort of reinforce what people have already said. Really, that we can't squeeze all this down to just 3 necessarily, because actually these things complement each other. Teachers having integrative skills is important, having the activities is important, but also there is a need for having forms of anti-racism interventions, and particularly, if discrimination, bullying, other things are happening in the school classroom, those do need dealing with in order to be effectively welcoming schools. So, we do need to make sure that there is a sort of a framework for justice, really, and making sure that people have means of, pupils that are experiencing discrimination have a means of being able to tackle that, as well as having the warmer activities that are designed to try and integrate people, and ensure that people are more broadly welcome.
Thank you.
I was just willing to build on your starting point. All the recommendations are putting refugees and migrants as recipients. How can we put something that how the system is creating the condition and the proper environment for them to participate, to hear their voices and allow them to be active in the co-creation of the solutions. And I don't see any recommendation that is empowering that.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, yes, I understand. It's a very important point, which is mentioning that how to empower refugees, children, and migrants children to speak out when there is something, or to be very active in their environment.
All the way we organize the school is making them safe to speak out or to participate in any way. Not be pressured just to be integrated, to be suiting what is expected from them in a new society, in a new community. How can they state their own identity, their individuality, and be feeling well, and part of the community? So,
okay,
I think it's the hardest thing to achieve. But
Yeah.
I think
But
it's important
I
that we
think
put
these,
something.
these what you are speaking about, they have to be for her mentioned with these steps we said, because as long as I am not allowed to go to school, then it is not impossible. As long as the people don't understand me and don't take care of my psychological, my needs, my so that I can't, this self-esteem has to be first worked out so that they can then be active. So I think this is the product or the fruit of these steps. Or yeah.
What about if it's phrased like it's the value behind of these recommendations? Because you actually talk about the human value of these children, that they feel part of the school community, they want to participate, be active actors in the schools.
I tell you.
So I think this is...
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We can say the thing behind this recommendation, you can say it, is the human value, to discover the human value of each child so that he can be active in this society and to reach our inclusive society. This is a good thing. Thank you very much. Just at the end of these three recommendations. Okay, I say again. The aim of this thing is to discover the human value of each one and to strengthen his self-esteem so that he can be active in school and outside. And so we reach this peaceful, inclusive society. This is our aim, I think.
Yeah.
Peaceful, inclusive society, beginning at school and going outside the society.
Yeah, which includes both self-worth and self-esteem, because that's very different.
So
so they can have self-esteem. Please help. So they can have a bit of self-esteem.
Yes, and
Be active participants.
be active at school and outside.
I think that it's participation and contribution, because they should contribute to.
Yeah.
Contribute to the community, to the society. Can I comment on that?
Yeah.
I think often when we do talk about refugees, we always talk about them in regards to what they can give the society, and I do understand that, but I also think that we have to consider what they can give themselves when they do.
To be contributors, they should be, first of all.
That's why we say self-esteem, because self-esteem is something for me.
I understand, it's just the rhetoric we have when it comes to refugees that
I understand what you mean.
if you stay in Denmark, what do you have to provide for us?
Yeah.
Whereby being a refugee is a right, and I do not have to provide something as such, but it's also good if I myself can work on myself and be a good person, and that's enough.
Yes, that you are like active. You are like active participant. It doesn't matter really if you are doing something for the society. It's enough that you do for yourself and maybe your family. I understand your point, because it's a bit like misusing when you give the refugee status for somebody and then you have to contribute something back. It shouldn't be like that. Yeah.
Of course we do
Yeah.
contribute.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just feel
Yes.
like we have to change the rhetoric of
Yes.
me feeling as a refugee that if I don't have a degree in this, if I don't do this, because I don't ask white Danes, like, what do you contribute with in Denmark? But why should I be asked all the time why I contribute with?
I understand what you mean.
Yes, yes, I understand. But you can frame yourself in the way that actually we are talking about now the values behind it. Like everybody has the human value, that the system should be humane for everybody. And the children,
We can put this, the system has to be humane for everybody.
Just quick note, we have only 7 minutes left for this session and the lunch.
The flow is going.
Yeah.
Please let it go. Okay, can you summarize what you...
Yes.
So that we can keep it.
Yes. Okay. You want everything I want to say?
Yeah.
I have some of the conclusion.
First help her to write correct phrasing of 3 recommendations.
Yes.
You have the point? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So, but I don't have their recommendation, so you
They
know.
will add it. I will.
Okay. So, all refugee children have access to education as their legal right without the need for documentation.
Take the red one, the danger.
Oh, wait, sorry, that's not for the whiteboard. It's here.
That's not quite, I'm used to it. We gave them the paper, just check.
Sorry,
Oh, you can have once you finish.
Maybe you want to, and then it's
thank you very much for your participation. Oh, that's nice. Okay. Thank you very much.
You will be able to have something.
Thank you very much.
Should I continue? Legal right? See you.
Bye.
Without the need for documentation. This includes, thank you, access for children and parents to health and social care, including impact of trauma. Yes, and the third one is?
Maybe the second from Patrice.
Yes, it's going to be the last.
Okay.
Yeah. It is that, one second. It is in regards to including intercultural.
Including intercultural.
Education for teachers.
But we mean not only for teachers, right? We said like school staff or something like that, wider.
Sorry, for what?
Workforce. We said we want to be wider than teachers, not only teachers. Yeah.
School workforce.
What is that?
All the people,
Not just, okay.
Yeah.
school workforce. School staff. School staff. Thank you. School staff. Yes.
Yes. And then the third one?
Should we mention here in this second one what we said during their studies and after, or it's not necessary?
Yeah.
Policy, language.
The pre and in service. I just have to say it in my own language. But I have it.
Our language would be continuing professional development.
Yeah, I also think that we miss this word as a professional development.
We need the formal policy language in terms of 3 recommendations, and then you are free to use your own words. This will be written behind you during the presentation as official lettering, official language, and you can paraphrase when
Yes,
you
yes, yes.
speak. So
Yeah.
don't worry. A professional. Andrew, what did you?
As a professional development.
What's the
Yes,
professional-
sorry, I can't always hear when people are speaking. Continuing professional development.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yes. Teachers and counselors. Integration of teachers.
With refugee background. I'm not sure, is that correct wording? I don't know. Teachers with refugee background. So I'm not sure, is that correct?
Yeah, I don't know.
With
Check the phrasing. I would know that in Finnish language, but
yeah.
With refugees and migration background, because we are not speaking only refugees.
Then use just migration, because migration is wider umbrella term.
Refugee is very important because as a refugee you have more than. I am a migrant, but not as a refugee.
But if you are a refugee, you are also a migrant. So that's the umbrella term.
Yes, because.
Yes. And then the
Can we before we move on, I'm tired. Can we be more specific with this one, or can we just group? Can you help us? Can you read the whole sentence, the second one, and make sure that everybody understands? Yeah. Thank you.
So, intercultural education for school workforce, including continuing professional development through integration of teachers with refugee and migration backgrounds. Can we phrase that better?
Is that policy
I don't think it's-
language that we can make
But
it
we want to. She will elaborate that a little bit when speaking about it. Why we want that?
I think we can make it clearer.
Andrew, go ahead. Thank you.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is through teachers having a migrant background. I think the whole point here is we want the whole teaching workforce to acquire these intercultural skills to help support things. It might be, obviously it's helpful to have some teachers who have got some personal experience of migration, but we can't necessarily mandate that in every school.
Okay, so you would
require.
separate those two, or basically not include the.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, you're right. So just put it in the column or something, because it will be just in the notes, not official recommendations. Yeah.
That's not a means to make change everything that we have to go through migration background.
Can we add it or make it end or think? No. Yeah, yeah. That's totally different recommendations. Yeah. Separate one.
really good and welcome and additional to this initiative. The integration, that's not, That's not the point of this.
She will elaborate what she is going. We have.
Yes, but this will be behind her officially.
Elaborated with this integration of teachers with refugee backgrounds, we will not send the right message of our recommendation, I would rather not mention delete, or mention like that would be good. We think that this recommendation would also contribute to this as a result.
or just have a diversity of teachers teaching refugee kids.
that's not the same. Yeah.
It's a little bit general, more general. Yeah, it is not what we want.
It's your, it's the way to. Okay, so can you now read again the whole sentence so make sure that we are on the same page with official recommendations, number 2.
Education for school workforce, including continuing professional development.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, we can move on to
Number 3, yeah? Your group?
I don't know, it is a little bit...
But I will elaborate on it.
Yes, but it
But
has
we need
to be
to
very
write to
important
whom and
when we read
in
it.
which
That's-
means how to do it.
It's too little for me.
Exact
It's too-
recommendation, not just.
What about intercultural education regarding the needs of refugee children?
I think it's both that.
Go on. Andrew, go
Yeah,
on.
no, I agree. It is about the needs of migrant and refugee children, but I think it's also about how to facilitate, learning and integration activities. Sorry, I can't phrase that quite right, but because it's about not just understanding what the needs of those children might be, but also being able to facilitate their active integration within the school setting.
We only have 2 minutes left, so.
I think we should take the last one, and then...
Why don't we say intercultural education in ways that integrate the specific needs of refugee children?
And maybe, yeah.
Ways that integrate. Sorry. Great. I read that. Sorry.
Read again, please. All the
Intercultural education in ways that integrate the specific needs of refugee children for school workforce, including continuing professional development. It still can be improved, I think. But maybe we should move to the third one.
What's the professional development aiming at?
Let's go to the including continuing professional development.
Like which kind of professional development are you talking about?
That integrates, why don't we do it like this? Hang on. Or integrates the specific
That needs to be specified, otherwise it can be anything.
needs of refugee children. We take it out from there.
I think the word integration is again a bit risky because then we are talking about different policymakers and understand in different ways. Like, if I can, for example, the integration in certain European countries actually means assimilation, and in certain countries it really means the integration. So integration means that you are positive with your own cultural background and you are also positive towards the cultural background, what's around you in the society. So assimilation means that you forget your own cultural background. So in that sense, I would try to avoid the word integration because
maybe
of that.
inclusion.
Yeah. Inclusion is better.
Okay, we are out of time. Lunch is starting. Lunch.
Guys, can I please just read the last one so you all know?
Yeah,
before we
please.
go? Thank you. In partnership with Series, is that?
Serious.
Yes.
Series, and Impacts, is that true? MEPACs, thank you. And possibly other research-related networks and institutions, EPDF wants to participate in the assessment and monitoring of both formal national education system and interreligious organizations in their integration. The needs and aspirations of immigration and refugees. Was that?
There is something missing in the last sentence.
So here I put that includes or is sensitive to.
of the EPDF. You can read European Policy Dialogue Forum so that everybody understands that we are referring to the forum. Because in writing down we use the acronym, but it's better to read European Policy Dialogue Forum.
Because the whole point is we want this recommendation to everybody who will feel related to that.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Sorry, yeah, I don't know if we need also to explain what pretext is.
Yeah, I think so, because I don't know what it is.
It's so easy to overcomplicate things.
Yeah, it is. I see it's
But Larry, we have a trust in you. We have trust in you.
Oh, thank you. It's just the last one I have to, but otherwise it's fine. Thank you for the trust. See you.
Thank you.
Midnight, yeah, please.
So it's at 4 o'clock to do this?
Maybe you stay here.
In the calendar?
It's Migrant Integration Policy Index. So the migration policy index. Because
can you write it from
education is
here?
one of the yeah.
One second.
Love action.
What time are we presenting?
At 4.
Oh, first at 4. Okay, we have time.
But these sentences will be written behind you, so
Yes,
they
yes,
need
yes.
to be finalized. I need to send them to the tech.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Changed it. Apparently I'm Miss. I'm now a lady. Wow.
I'm often Mr., so don't. This time it went correctly. It's quite complicated when you do the check-in and then you realize that you're Mr. and they're looking at you like,
Yeah, I just figured out now.
What is the
Miss
and
John.
what is
Good.
education?
Well done.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Sorry.
So we see each other after lunch, but not down here, just for the networking.
After lunch, it's 2:30.
Yeah, we are finished here. Because they squeezed 3 things together.
Yeah, it is good.
and I must
Then we don't lose all our ideas.
That's small from Patrice.
But we don't
Good
have
job,
the mandate
Sue.
to
Keeping
discuss
it
it
to-
without studying English first. It's not studying English, studying local and language lessons. Remember language lessons.
And possibly other.
Thank you, dear.
Well done.
Yeah.
That's it, I need my lunch now. Makes it fun colour.
phrasing is not easy. Phrasing is not easy. Phrasing.
Okay.
When you want
Thank you
to.
very much. You were very productive, and you deserve now
The lunch.
break. Thank you very much.
Thank you, my
Thank
daughter.
you very much.
Andrew, thank you. We are finished, hopefully. I hope that you will be looking at the live presentation at 4, I think. So thank you for your participation and all the rest of the virtual participants. We will see each other hopefully soon, and stay safe. Bye.
Thank you, Andrew.
Bye.
Recording stopped.